It's kind of weird seeing the Vikings 0-2, right?
I mean, maybe. I thought, going into the season, I thought this was going to be the year of the struggle for Minnesota. If you just looked at the landscape of the quarterbacks, and we may talk about where the quarterbacks stack up with the rest of the talent in the league when we do the picks in a little bit. But if you just stack the quarterback talent up against each other, I mean, there's only a handful of guys in the league right now that are on the older end of the quarterback group. Kirk Cousins is one of those guys, and all of those guys in general just had big question marks in their situations and their performances, regardless of their age, what they did last year. I think you had Rodgers in that group, Cousins, Stafford, Tannehill, maybe one other guy too that I'm forgetting about in the 35 or over club. But I mean, Stafford was the only one of those guys last week that actually came out and performed and looked pretty good. And I don't think I would have bet on that, but I would have bet on these guys that maybe we started to see some regression just historically too for the Vikings. Last year was just this crazy, absurd, like they were able to pull out all these close wins, these game winning drives. And the thing with Kirk Cousins is, I mean, historically, he's been in, for wins and this type of stuff, he's been in that 500 range. And if he's going to have a season like that where everything just breaks right for him, well, I mean, law of averages for Kirk Cousins says that's going to probably go the other way next year and average back out. That's just because statistically that's what's happened. So I get, there's talent on this team. And, they've still been able to produce, move the ball, all that stuff, all the stuff that having a guy like Kirk Cousins in there gives you. But I mean, I'm not totally surprised that they regressed. I'm probably a little bit more surprised, honestly, that they hung with the Eagles as well as they did because last year the Eagles were able to dominate them. And I know, Jefferson was able to reverse that a little bit, but still they were able to hang with a team that we thought going into the season was one of the better teams in the NFC. I think that the Eagles letting them stay around, I honestly think that surprised me a little bit more than the Vikings being 0-2.
Yeah, I mean, it was 4 fumbles to 1 interception. I mean, the Eagles' turnover battle, it wasn't even close, which, maybe you can look at Madison a little bit for that. But like we said, that D line is dangerous. And we knew this
Mm-hmm.
defense would be, really dominant. And I think that's an interesting point you bring up about it being, Philly not really producing as well as you'd hope when you have that many when you have that many chances to get the ball. It just seemed like when you're watching the game, it was just pretty much Hurts wasn't able to find many of his other options outside of Devontae Smith, who had a great game, mind you, but
Big plays.
it seemed like him and AJ Brown had a little bit of well, they were yelling at each other on the sideline, and
Hurts,
I mean, where's there?
Hurts and Brown.
Yeah, yeah. There's clips of
Oh, I
them
didn't see
like
this.
arguing on the sideline. AJ Brown only finished with he was 4 of 6 with 29 yards. And I think the Eagles, for some reason the Vikings couldn't stop DeAndre Swift. He had 28 carries, 175 yards, ended with a touchdown. And I mean, you can really see that there was huge, I mean, glaring stat to show how bad it was for them, how bad the rushing defense was for the Vikings. When you see the Eagles had 19 rushing first downs, the Vikings had 0. So it's just really apparent the issue that was there is just DeAndre Swift was able to tear him up. And
Yeah.
I just, it is a little bit interesting to see what happens this next year in terms of the next step that Hurts is going to take. I mean, we've talked about, are we going to see continued growth from Hurts? Vikings don't necessarily have, Legion of Boom secondary. I mean, they did get a pick, but is Hurts going to be able to, find non-wide open wide receivers, tighter windows that he's going to have to hit, especially when he has a solid rushing attack and he himself can use his legs. It's a little surprising to not see him find other options than Devontae Smith, who can break, who has that breakaway speed and makes himself an easy target.
It's interesting. I can't believe I missed this clip. And you can't blame them for continuing to run the ball as much as they did. Like you're saying, it was working. I mean, DeAndre Swift was killing him. He was having an amazing day. Just keep going to that. That's what's being productive for that game. But the Hurts start to the season here. I know, like, I know you had him picked on to win the MVP. I mean, I was right. I was right there with you. I had him second on my MVP ballot for options. I think a lot of people just looking at the landscape of the NFC were thinking, I mean, this team is in a prime position to be a dominant team again, and they still look like they're one of the better teams in the league. But I think everybody had Hurts pegged for just this big take the leap year. And the first couple of games here, I mean, he's done what he's needed to. Like they've gotten the wins. Again, the defense and the defensive line and both lines for the Eagles have been dominant. But if you look at last year for the Eagles, Hurts was and the Eagles offense was 7.1 yards net yards per passing attempt to 4.6 yards per rushing attempt. And through just the first two games here this season, they're 5.2 net yards per pass attempt and 4.9 yards per rush attempt. So the passing game has seemed to take a little bit of a step back here through these first two games. And Hurts in that, in this game, but at the end of the Patriots game too as well. I don't want to say they were taking the ball out of his hands, but I mean, just watching it, does it feel like they're asking him to do more this year? Because again, that was the surprising thing about seeing, especially in a rematch type game like this, and you're saying against a defense that, you have Flores in there as the defensive coordinator. He's going to coach the group up well, but I think there's just a lot of other defensive units that we would take over this group. So to see them and to see their passing offense too, to just be sort of this mellow and this average to start the season. Are there any concerns here for Hurts, the season after the breakout season?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of concern just in terms of, Dom really being dominant in these games. I think when you have this much talent on your team, when the defense creates so many chances for you to score, you got to find a way to really put up those points. And the last 2 weeks, they've been playing against the last two games they had was against Kirk Cousins, and then the week before was Mac Jones. Pretty conservative quarterbacks. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens when this team faces one of the top dogs, which they might not. And for a while, looking at their schedule, they let's pull it up here. So yeah, they play the Bucks next week, which okay. Baker Mayfield may have had a good win against the Vikings, but I'm not gonna put them up there. Then Commanders, and then it'll be the Rams, I guess, is where but I think the really interesting test will be the Dolphins on October 22nd.
Yeah.
When even though it will be in Philly, that'll be a really explosive offense. Yeah. I think it'll really test them, really, really push them in terms of, can they keep up the scoring attack, and when they aren't up on 19 rushing first downs, and it'll be, it's just weird to see, I think, especially in this time and era with how many yards that quarterbacks are regularly getting, going through 2 weeks and not getting over 200 passing yards is a worrying stat. Him not finding as much connection with Dallas Goedert, one of the better tight ends in the league, is also a little interesting. And, and that's partially why AJ Brown was yelling at Hurts when he mentioned in the press conference, is that Hurts admitted that it was due to a little bit lack of usage in the passing game. His quote is, "I think everyone wants to make plays, everyone wants to contribute. I have no worry about him, but I have a little bit of worry about Hurts. We gotta see. They're 2-0. They've obviously they're undefeated. That's not the issue, but." Especially, you want to destroy bad teams. That's usually, you want to beat them down, and to have it.
Bad team alert for the Vikings.
And that's what I was about to say. I don't think the Vikings are a bad team. I think this defense put the offense in a really good position to really have a big margin in this game. The defense created a lot of turnovers. I don't think the Vikings are a bad team at all. Actually, I was wanting to come on and say I really like the Vikings offense. The way they spread the ball, especially that second half. Addison kind of looks like a legit pick, their first rounder from the draft. And I think he's a good enough balance to continue letting Jefferson cook, which I got a really long monologue, but I gotta
Mm-hmm.
apologize to Justin Jefferson. I've been on this
Oh wait,
train of
can we go back to AJ Brown real quick? And then
yeah.
because
We
I
can
want
stay
to
with
talk
AJ.
about Jefferson, I want to talk about Jefferson too. So
Okay.
we can go in on Jefferson. But just I the AJ Brown thing, the way they've used him to start the season, and this is connected with the Hurts thing as well too. And I don't know if this is Hurts development. We'll find out here through the season. I don't know if it's Hurts development or I don't know if it's Eagles coaching as well. Because it wouldn't be shocking. We've seen this formula with the Eagles for them to bring in a new coach, him to have a hot start. Doug Peterson won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, and then was shortly. I'm not saying Nick Sirianni's headed to get fired here. Like we're not over. They won the game. We're not overreacting. But I'm
Whoa,
just the way their offense functioned was very similar to the way it functioned last year, in that it was run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And they're going to do all of that to try to loosen up for the play action, take the deep shot, because you want to get the defense moving, because Hurts is a good passer, but he's not up there at the line checking plays. Maybe his going through 1 through 5 progression might not be top notch in the league. But part of the step up, I think, was going to be like, okay, like, is he going to do more in the offense this year? And in this game, you see it where they just never really did more than run the ball. And then they did take this shot a couple of times, and it was to Devontae Smith. Like you said, Devontae Smith had a good game, but they're not asking Jalen Hurts to do more. And I don't know if that's Hurts development, and I don't know if that's coaching. The coaching has, it seemed like, really affected Brown. Just the way they're using him is, I don't agree with it. I think it's BS. They're just, I mean, this is one of the best deep route receivers in the league. And just so, like, his average yards per target for his career in Tennessee, that he was 12.5 his rookie year, then 10, then 8, and then 10 again yards per target last year on the Eagles. And 2 games this year, 6.8 yards per target. Too much short stuff. I was watching this Thursday night game in the Prime Vision, which is like the all 22. So you're really like zoom back, seeing how they're really using all these receivers. And they really only sent AJ Brown deep two times in this game. And they were both on the end zone that really should have worked. One of them got called back because of a holding call. And the other one, Jalen Hurts just kind of missed through the pass. And there's a lot of passes too, where you look at Hurts ball placement and some of the stuff. I don't want to overreact here, but I think while they could still be a dominant team with what they have, obviously, in the NFC, I think a lot of us thought that this was going to be a step forward year for this Eagles team and this Eagles offense. And through 2 games, I mean, statistically, it just hasn't functioned as well.
Yeah, and it's just interesting to see that how much it's not how much the rain is being held back on Jalen Hurts, who you think they would give a little bit more trust to after the run of the Super Bowl. Yes, he did give up some turnovers in that big moment, but you still got to give your quarterback the chance to develop. And I think that's an excellent point that you bring up, because we haven't really seen any drives where Hurts is dissecting the defense, where he's really, just working his way up the field. And there are going to be games that they're going to have to do that, especially with the top tier teams. They're going to see, like you mentioned, them just running that play action. And Devontae Smith is kind of perfect for that role, in terms of just go run as fast as you can. No one's going to catch you, and you're going to be wide open. And A.J. Brown is definitely a more of a wide receiver, as well as their tight end, for working their way up the field, getting that intermediate passes and short gain. And it's just, I mean, I think in terms of how the teams are going to face regularly in the NFC, they're not going to have to worry about it. But if they really want to get past the top tier teams, especially San Francisco, it's going to be, they're going to need Hurts to take another level. I mean, Nick Bosa he's going to be chasing him all day. And the San Francisco, I mean, they're not worried with where they're at a quarterback. Brock Purdy this past week, he had 220 passing yards, not this, but the previous week against against the Pittsburgh. Great game, 2 touchdowns and no interception, 111 rating. and it's his sixth consecutive start with a regular season start with at least two passing touchdowns and a rating of 95 or higher, which is him. He's the second ever only quarterback in Super Bowl era with at least two touchdowns in each of his first seven career starts, and the first ever quarterback with a passer rating of 95 or higher in the first seven of his career starts. So, shout out to them for trading Trey Lance. Like they always say, they're the ones watching people in practice. But with quarterbacks like him taking another step, whoever is coming out of the NFC, we know they're going to be continuing to see growth. It's disappointing not to see Jalen Hurts to be on that similar track, to his team not allowing him to be on that similar track, because and it's going to be, I mean, they might have another cupcake schedule. We already mentioned the Dolphins. But especially we've seen how the Giants are playing. Their division, is not necessarily too much of a worry. Sam Howell on the other side, and I'm not ever going to put much confidence in the Cowboys. But so they're not going to really get tested this year, and so that's why I personally, and you might too, have just a higher standard for these wins that they should have if they want to be serious Super Bowl contenders.
Time once again. Are they coming back
What?
out? Uh-oh, is it time?
What
Brock Purdy over Jalen Hurts? Is it time? Because I mean, remember the sunglasses are on now. The perk filter is out. I mean,
is that?
is it time to say that do we love Jalen Hurts because we got to see him develop into passer and to progress? He comes into the NFL as a project, ascends into the MVP conversation. But how many more games has Jalen Hurts played than Brock Purdy, really? And Brock Purdy, you thrust him in right, like you're saying. He not only is he being productive, he's doing it efficiently, and the statistics are saying he's already one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I mean, this is across 2 seasons now. How many more games do we have to see? How long will it take?
I mean, it's
Okay,
getting
the glasses
interesting.
are off now.
I don't know who is the best quarterback in the NFC right now. I mean,
Well, I mean, just if you're just talking about what happened in week one, again, just week one this season, I guess technically week two for Philly, like it's gonna be forgotten because San Francisco won that game so dominantly. But the Steelers defensive line played really, really well in that game. And I think they're even statistically right now, just after the one game. I think they had the highest pressure rate of any team in week one, and it didn't matter. And a lot of that was Brock Purdy actually running around and being elusive. And yeah, they were getting the ball out quick at times too. And TJ Watt still was able to get in there, make his plays. If Kenny Pickett doesn't have the turnovers on the other side, is that a much closer game? But Purdy was still able to move around and do some things. So the glasses were on. Hurts, Purdy. I think 1v1 player is a lot different when you take them out of their systems. But still, like I think if they have Purdy in that game, that's kind of a turning point moment for this Eagles organization, because if the Niners beat them, they don't get into the Super Bowl. I still think you're really hyped on Hurts and where you're at as a team. But again, you're not in that last level where it's like, okay, we're on top of the NFC now. Like everything in the NFC runs through us. It's, the Niners have this sort of what if thing hanging over there. And Purdy came out, we both said that he was going to be good. He looked amazing. They dominated. And again, Hurts has done what he's needed to do. But I think we could say that even Purdy is like doing a little bit more this year. And we want to see Jalen Hurts, do a little bit more.
no, for sure. And, I think we also saw a little bit in the game of Hurts being quick to rush, him quick to want to run the ball, and when he had a bit of pressure, which will be another interesting thing to look at. But yeah, I don't know. Brock Purdy looked really good.
With what you were saying. I think that goes to with what you were saying though. I think that might be a coaching thing where are they telling Hurts that, if your early reads aren't there? Because last year, as Hurts is progressing and growing as a quarterback, you go, okay, like if that play action read is not there, I mean, you're an athletic guy. Feel free to tuck the ball and run. And I think there are times where we'd want to see him try to make that second, third, fourth read. And yeah, you're right. He's still kind of pulling the ball and running. I think teams are maybe starting to play that a little more.
Yeah, and teams are gonna figure it out. I mean, like we said, I'm a big believer in defenses just pouring over film. I mean, this is literally their lives, and there's like what 10, 20 assistants on every team that all they are meant to
Mm,
do is just
yeah.
live, eat, and breathe the next week's opponent, and they're gonna figure out how to stop them. And if you
And
have such
Flores is a
a
good coordinator too. Like,
yeah, oh
gotta give him his
Flores,
props, but Brian
yeah.
Flores.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. But it's one of those things where you just gotta. Um, oh, shout out to Brian Flores. I did not know he was there. But shout
Vikings.
yeah, I did not know. I did not know he got signed. But yeah, no, it's just one of those things where if you're becoming predictable, if we at home on TV can kind of guess what your offense is, then people who do it for a living can
Mm.
figure it out. And the
Yeah, we're not even
Vikings and
smart.
yeah. I mean, like, hey, speak for yourself. But yeah, I mean, they played against, the Patriots. The Patriots game was a 5-point game. I was sweating it. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we'll talk about our picks a little bit, but the Vikings are probably not even going to win their division. And it
No.
was it was actually a close game against Mac Jones. They get with the Vikings. They get a 4 turnover lead, and it's still a 1-score game. So all this to say, it's pretty underperforming from the Vikings. Pretty slow start, and maybe the sluggish. What do they call it? Sluggish runner up. The slow run runner up is happening right now, and the Eagles need to wake
Hungover
up. But
hurts.
good
Hungover
win.
hurts.
Hungover hurts. There we go. That's the TikTok, the Instagram thing on there.
The
Hungover
hangover
hurts.
hurts.
Yeah, that's good. That's good right there.